Hi. Thank you all for coming. I'm Javon Siganofi, PTA President, and this is our candidates night. I'm going to introduce Kelly Wu, who is our EVP, who is in charge of tonight's debate. Oh, before we do that, we're going to do the flag salute. Sorry. Everyone stand up. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hi. I'd like to introduce our moderator first. Our moderator is Michelle Bobrow, and she comes from the League of Women Voters. Michelle has been a member of the League of Women Voters for over 40 years. She is a League of New Jersey trained and accredited moderator. She was on the LWV NJ board for 12 years and is a current member of the management team of the LWV of Maplewood, South Orange. She is a parliamentarian accepted for membership in the National Association of Parliamentarians, as well as an officer in the New Jersey State Association of Parliamentarians and Cranford Unit of Parliamentarians. She currently volunteers with numerous charitable organizations, especially as court-appointed social advocate for abused and neglected youth. She has been active in the New Jersey Coalition Against Human Trafficking and is passionate about encouraging eligible voters to register and vote. This is Michelle. So before we get started, I'd just like to go over the rules. Audience, the questions will come from the audience. You need to submit them on index cards that we were passing around. If you need an index card or a pen, just raise your hand and someone will pass it out to you. Please put your name and your address on the card along with your question. And once you're done, you need to funnel it this way. But please make sure that you're not walking in front of the camera. So just in this general direction, the card will come up to the moderator. And as you can see, we're having this taped for later viewing on TV 35, and it will also be available on the web. I'm sure there will be an announcement at some point when it's available. That's it.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here this evening. I just want to remind you that the League of Women Voters is a trusted, nonpartisan political organization, and we do know that even though the election has been changed to the partisan election date, a Board of Education is still a nonpartisan organization. League wants to make sure that everyone votes and that every vote be counted, but we also want our voters to be informed, which is why we hold debates such as this. Throughout our 95-year history, the League has been a voice for sound government practices. This commitment will prevail in this century and beyond. We serve to inform voters by holding candidates' nights, which are fair and balanced, political but nonpartisan, unbiased to educate voters, and conducted under strictly nonpartisan guidelines. I would like to introduce you to the candidates for Board of Education. You will be voting for 2 of the 4 candidates when you go to the polls on November 3rd. From my right, your left, Jordan Hyman, Kate Motz, Jeannie Parker, and Maura Wolf. As you heard, there will be opening statements by the candidates, 3 minutes each, with the order chosen at random. Then the candidates will answer the questions that you pose, so make sure you get them up here. Make sure that the questions are appropriate to the position of Board of Education and are specific to the office and are not personal. Questions, each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question, and if they have to rebut, they will have up to 30 seconds. And then we will go for closing remarks in the opposite order. I urge you all now to turn off your cell phones and other devices. The only one who needs one is the timekeeper. The timekeeper will be there. She has an orange card for 30 seconds, red for stop. You may continue and finish your sentence, but don't have run-on sentences, paragraphs, pages, chapters. So, the order of openings. Jeannie Parker first, Maura Wolf second, Katie Motz third, and Jordan Hyman fourth. Ms. Parker.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, I am Jeannie Parker. I've lived in Mountainside since 2002. My daughter, Kate, is a senior at Governor Livingston. I first ran for the board in 2010, losing to an experienced and accomplished opponent. In 2011, I was appointed to the board along with Kate Motz to fill 2 vacancies, and we both ran for election in 2013. I currently chair our Strategic Planning Committee and serve on the Community Outreach and Curriculum Committees. In addition, I am entering my 3rd year as liaison to the Berkeley Heights Board of Education, where I also serve on the Athletic Committee. Mine is one of 2 open positions this election season. Ours is a board of diverse professional backgrounds. We have an attorney, an educator, a CFO, an architect, a small business owner, and a former regional county school board member who has an encyclopedic knowledge of New Jersey schools. We work as a team, and all of us bring something individually unique to the table. My specialty is background in data research, and I have more than 30 years' experience as an investigative journalist, and I've become the board's go-to research person as we review potential contractors for referendum work and collect data for potential high school send-receive partners. As a Berkeley Heights liaison and parent of a high school senior, I have an insider's perspective on Governor Livingston. I regularly interact with both Mountainside and Berkeley Heights parents, and have worked hard to build a strong and interactive relationship with the Berkeley Heights Board. In addition, like any volunteer position, mine is time-consuming. In addition to my Mountainside obligations, I attend at least 2 meetings in Berkeley Heights a month, and depending on the time of year, sometimes I am up the hill 2 and 3 nights a week for board obligations. My fellow board members and I have accomplished great things in my 4 years on the board, but I am most proud of having spearheaded and written with Kate Motz the 5-year strategic plan that has served as our district roadmap since 2013. Our successful referendum, incredible improvements in technology, implementation of a new and much-needed language arts program, expansive communication improvements including PowerSchool, the Mountainside Messenger, a Facebook page, and e-alerts, and nearly $400,000 in outside alternative funding are the direct result of this plan. Today, we are only to the halfway point of this plan, and there is no time for resting. We have much more to accomplish in our ongoing commitment to move this district forward. I sincerely hope to retain my seat and continue the forward-looking work we have started.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf?
Thank you. First, let me thank the PTA for organizing this event this evening. I particularly would like to thank Jovan and Kelly for their enduring patience in this process. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mauro Wolf. I'm a resident, a 10-year resident of Mountainside, New Jersey, and an avid fan of the great things that make Mountainside a very special place to raise your children and to be part of as a community. In my experience, I've found that there are some really great things about Mountainside that make it unique, from the Mountainside Library to the Mountainside Community Pool to the Trailside Nature Center to the Wachtong Stables. I've enjoyed and participated in all of these things. And by way of background, I am a trial attorney for an international law firm in New York City, and we have offices, 2 offices here in New Jersey. My educational background is I'm a business major with an economics minor, and I've had experiences as a federal prosecutor here in the District of New Jersey for then U.S. Attorney Chris Christie. I've been a senior enforcement attorney at the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, and I represent clients worldwide on issues involving complex matters of law, policy, and regulation. My purpose and interest in running for the school board really relates to things that I've seen over the past 10 or 11, 12 months. In 2011, with Kate Motz and Gene Parker, I also applied for a opening position here on the school board and was selected. And that was fine, and I think that was appropriate for the time. But the times have changed. This school district is facing extraordinary challenges with the send-receive relationship. It is facing challenges with regards to its school district. I think, particularly K-8, I think the school district currently is ranked 215th. And the question for the community to ask yourself is, are we satisfied with that? That information is not something that's commonly distributed or discussed within board meetings, but I think we could do better. The Mountainside community currently, as a town, is ranked 70th in the state. In 2008, Mountainside was ranked 50th. It was top 4%. So the cause of that, the reasons for that are unclear. Part of my duties and responsibilities from the board is to encourage greater scrutiny of the data and understanding of where we're going as a community and where we're going as a school district. And I think getting back to the top 50 is something that's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Motz?
Hello, everyone. I'm Kate Motz. As Jeannie said before, I was appointed to the Mountainside Board of Education in 2011 to fill one of the open seats and reelected. So I'm just finishing up a 3-year term. And I've been working with an incredible, very highly effective board. And we have really a lot of accomplishments I think we can be proud of. Jeannie mentioned this. She took all my good stuff. she talked about our strategic plan. Yeah, what she said. Which led to the successful passing of our referendum, which is, allowing much needed improvements for our schools. Yay for no more water dripping through the ceilings. And we've increased communications with the community. I believe that we've improved transparency with the Mountainside community and local organizations. These are just a few things that I think are a big deal that we've accomplished. But for those of you who are not familiar with kind of a month in the life of a Board of Ed member, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what we do. And this is from my personal experience, so this is not necessarily what every single person does, but this is what I do. I spend time reading over financial statements, making certain that what we are spending is in line with our available resources. I ask questions when clarification is needed, have conversations with other members of the board, administrative teams, so that I can get clear on any items that are not clear to me. I read over and I analyze and critique school policies to make sure that they are right for our district. I spend time discussing goals, addressing concerns with the other board members, members of our administration, parents, community members. I attend numerous committee meetings, mostly at night, but sometimes in the middle of the day. I'm a small business owner, and therefore I am one of the few board members that they can call and say, hey, can you go to this in the middle of the day? And I tend to say yes, because I have the flexibility. And I do frequently get called on to represent the board in the middle of the day for events and meetings with the community. I chair the community outreach projects because that's just an initiative of mine to make sure that we reach out to our community. I chaired the creation of our alternative funding committee so that we can bring in more revenue for our district. I recruited members of our community to help us with this initiative. I serve on the curriculum committee so that we can constantly improve our curriculum. And I fill in, I mentioned, at various committee meetings when other board members can't make it. We really all do work together and help each other when needed. And I bring a unique perspective. I've served as the PTA liaison. I'm currently serving as the public library liaison so that we can work closely in a partnership with our public library. My husband and I have been in Mountainside now for 8 years. We have 3 kids, 1 at Beechwood, 2 at Deerfield. My motivation for being here and continuing is to serve our community. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. Now, are there any questions?
Can I talk?
That's a good question.
That's just one. You can rebut it if you want. It's okay. Well, thanks. Hi, guys. I'm Jordan Hyman, and I will try to keep it quickly because I know I'm sure you guys have lots of questions. I just want to say I think it's pretty awesome that this place is packed. Thank you to the PTA certainly for making that happen. But this is the room here tonight. The people whose faces I see from where I sit. This is why I'm running. when I first thought about would this be worthwhile, should I get involved, and as Kate just outlined, being fully aware that this is a huge commitment. Yes, it starts from a personal place, and you think about your kids, and you think about, this is a pivotal time, and you think you can make a difference, and I believe I can. But ultimately, it kind of came down to the feedback that I got and have continued to receive from people across Mountainside, some of whom are friends and were friends and will always remain friends, but some of whom, I've just met in this process. And to me, what's interesting about all this is that, again, feedback being what it is, there's clearly, I think, an appetite for new ideas, which I think is great. There's an appetite for new energy. There is an appetite for change. And when I think about what I would do on the board, it really starts with those things. It starts with energy. It starts with knowing what I do every day and how hard I work for my kids in my job at the Wall Street Journal, and thinking that, this would be a pretty amazing opportunity to be able to not only think about the ways I personally can help, but to tap into all of the people here and many who can't be here tonight, and say, look, there are opportunities for us to do big things in Mountainside. I think the most exciting part of all of this is that we're a small town. We're less than 7,000 people. In a small town, you can make quick change, real change. And as I see it, and as I sit here, I think there's a lot of, low-hanging fruit. There are a lot of opportunities, and hopefully we can get into some of them tonight, that, again, with good coordination, with partnership across the town, we can make a difference and do it in a hurry. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. Now, are there any questions, or do I have to ask them? For those of you in the back who would like to sit down, there are seats in the front, and not in the front row, it's okay. And there are seats on the side as well.
Front seats cost extra.
Orchestra seating. Are we raising money for the Board of Ed?
If I get on the Board of Ed, sure.
What is your perspective on the use of assessments in the learning process? Leslie Morman, Woodacres Drive. The order is Mr. Hyman, Ms. Parker, Ms. Motz, and Mr. Wolf.
So, sorry, the question was my perspective on...
What is your perspective on the use of assessments in the learning process?
As in our current testing system, is that...
I have no idea.
Sorry. Oh, there you go. Yeah, would you mind? Sorry.
So I just am curious about how important you think all of the assessments, the park assessments, as well as the everyday, the Go Math assessments, the assessments that are, from my perspective, driving almost everything we do with the kids in the school system.
Thank you. So it's all the testing that we have to go through.
Yep, got it. Thanks, Leslie. So my sense on this, and I'm not an educator. I'm a marketing salesperson. I've learned a lot in the last 3 months, and I would learn a lot in the coming years. But my take on assessments, I think there's some good. I think there's some bad. Honestly, I think that there's some things that we sort of have to accept because of funding being what it is, because of the way that the state and county, et cetera, have things arranged, and I guess there is some good to some of the testing. I think what is troubling a little bit is that it seems to me a bit rigid in terms. Again, this is speaking generally, rigid just in terms of when our students are asked to take tests. Some of the how, Park was one of the more controversial assessments in the last year. And again, anecdotally, the feedback that I had at home and from friends and from kids was that it was a challenge and something that may or may not have been valuable. So it's worth another look.
Thank you, Ms. Parker.
I would say that it probably doesn't matter what my personal opinion is on testing, but if you wanted to know that, I have a child who doesn't test as well as other kids. She's a smart kid and just not a good test taker. But the fact of the matter is that we don't set the policy. The state and the federal government set the policy, and we have very little wiggle room on what we can do. So, you know, if the state says you're going to test the kids, and this is when you're going to test them, and this is how you have to do it, we don't have a lot of leeway. We could say no, and in which case, you know, in a district that is already trying to stay financially afloat and really working with a tight budget, we don't have the ability to say no and lose the kind of funding that we stand to lose. Now, I know there are districts where they have said no, but we, as this board, cannot take that kind of chance.
Ms. Motz.
Okay. I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach here. I think assessments are important for a lot of reasons. Yes, we have to do them, but my personal opinion, as far as an improvement that I think we could do, is how we go about them. I think that I've seen a lot of kids that get just overly stressed and worried about the assessments, and I think that's maybe an area that we can explore because we have to do them, right? But can we make them more pleasant for our kids, and so they're not, you know, such a big stress factor for them? That's just a totally different answer, but that's my opinion on that. So.
Mr. Wolf?
Thank you. My sense of it is, and I don't think it's that much different, I think there's a limitation on the flexibility that you have on taking assessments. Where I come out on education as a whole, whether it's curriculum, assessments, is I think we need to be careful about and focus on the fundamentals of education. I've been blessed by being married to a teacher for 21 years. And one of the things I've learned in Pennsylvania, where she taught, which gives a very different, I think, perspective on education, is how, as curriculum comes in and out, as tests comes in and out, what remains consistent throughout the entire process is great teaching. To me, my focus would be on great teaching. I think great teachers, retaining, finding, and keeping great teachers is very critical and important to the process. And my sense is, whether it's Park or whether it's something that comes out in the next 2 or 3 years, at the core, we as a community should value our great teachers and let them and give them as much flexibility and freedom to do what they do best.
Thank you. There's a question on the ranking and why your state ranking plummeted. What would you please address it? First, Mr. Wolf, because you mentioned it, and then we'll go through the others.
Sure. The data that I've seen, and first of all, let me say this. Let me preface my comments by saying I'm not wedded to rankings generally. However, I think rankings in today's world is an important factor. The data that I've seen is in 2008, the best ranking that Mountainside had was 50, and that's out of 1,350 schools in the state of New Jersey, which is a pretty phenomenal result. I don't know the answer of why it went from 50 to a couple years later, maybe 2011 was as high as 253. But if I was on the board and had access to the data, I think I would be examining the question and working with the superintendent. I think we have a very good superintendent and someone who I think would embrace those kinds of challenges to understand the causality, like what's the root cause of these issues, and more importantly, what's the strategic plan going forward to remedy the situation. I think that the board tenure is 3 years, and I think I'm willing to be patient. But I think a concerted effort on focusing and refocusing our efforts on student achievement is a priority.
Thank you. We're going to go in order. Ms. Motz, Ms. Parker, and Ms. Oops, I got backwards. And then Mr. Hyman. Okay. Ms. Motz?
So the question is just to generally comment about the rankings?
Why did it go down, and what would
Why did it go down?
And
But they're referencing Mr. Wolf's comment about, okay,
Yes.
because
Yes.
that's the issue for, I don't know how to answer the question because there are so many different rankings out there. So I don't know which one we're referring to. So I guess I'll just comment as far as rankings in general. Hopefully that will be helpful as far as my opinion's concerned. I don't necessarily like the rankings because they are so subjective, and there's so many different ways to look at a school and performance and a town, and is it a great place to live or not? And so, it's tough to answer that question not knowing exactly what was being looked at with regards to that rank. But in generally speaking, if you're going down in any ranking, you want to take a look at why, and like Mr. Wolf said, address the root cause and work together as a team to remedy the situation. So,
Ms. Parker?
Okay, I believe that the number that you're referring to is the off of School Digger based on the New Jersey state test results. And in that ranking, just to be clear, those rankings where we are 249 or whatever the number was, is a compilation. It's a middle school. It's middle schools, and that means in that ranking are schools that are 4th to 6th grade, 5th to 8th grade, 7th and 8th grade. They're all over the map. Ours happens to be a 3rd to 8th. So in those rankings, they consider us a 3rd to 8th, and so in some cases we have scores that other schools don't have. And that's just the way it is because they can't just split it out. If you did split it out, there are only 15 or something like that districts that are 3 to 8 in this state, and of that, I think we are number 3. But that's again, that's another manipulation of rankings. That's just showing you how rankings can go. So, that said, I'm not a huge believer in rankings, but I will say that in 2008, when we recognized, when I joined the board later, but they did recognize that performance was slipping, and we have taken measures with our new math program, which is now in effect and showing tremendous results, and our LAL program. We are in the 3rd year of that. It takes 6 years to see it, and I hope to God that we see results because we are working very hard to show some achievement and turnaround.
Mr. Hyman?
Thanks. So I guess, there's a couple of thoughts. On the one hand, there's a lot of rankings. I get that. Depending on what you look at, there's town rankings, there's rankings for the elementary school, there's high school rankings. So I've said many times, I don't think it's worth getting overly caught up in any one particular ranking. That said, I think it's a big deal, and here's why. When we commute into the city every day, we stand out there in the cold often, in the wind on the side of 22 waiting for a bus to come, and we've met a lot of good people over the last few months and years. And what's interesting to me, there's a lot of people who are new to town. And as I often say, I think you're never smarter about all the data available to you on a given town that you're considering living in than when you've just bought a home in that town. And perception, reality, for the moment, I think you set it aside. I think the question is, what are people looking at and what do they care about? And if they think that there's an issue in the town, and if they think that we've got challenge numbers in the school, again, regardless of what reality may be, that's a challenge. That's a problem, and that then gets us into a larger discussion about the value of Mountainside at large compared to all the great places around us to live. So this is worth digging into.
Michelle, could I
Sure.
have a 30-second rebuttal? I think Ms. Parker makes a fair comment about the differences in rankings, but what's interesting is if you look at the rankings of the top 100 elementary schools, you see communities like Summit consistently that they have 5 schools, elementary schools in the top 100. You see communities like Summit, Chatham, the schools that perhaps would be of interest to us if I knew the actual RFP schools, that those would be schools that we would look at that haven't been altered at all by the passage of time.
Thank you. Changing topics. How can we improve the send-receive relationship with Governor Livingston given fiscal limitations? Ms. Motz, Mr. Wolf, Mr. Hyman, Ms. Parker.
That's a really big question. Well, I mean, we're already doing that. I think Ms. Parker has been really instrumental in that. Communication's been a big challenge, but we've made some great headway there, and we need to continue to communicate. I think what's most important from my perspective is really, truly creating a partnership versus us feeling like we are, the customer over there. We really need to form a partnership and work collaboratively as a team to not only, have a great place for our kids to go, but, help that school grow and improve as well. And I think only by working as partners, we can do that with Berkeley Heights.
Mr. Wolf?
Can you repeat the question, please?
How can we improve our send-receive relationship with Governor Livingston given fiscal limitations?
I think that a lot of the information I've come to understand has come from the Mountainside Board, who's done a good job of communicating the challenges, particularly the team that's negotiating the agreement. And while I think that there are inherent limitations on what the Mountainside school board can disclose, I think there are a number of inherent imbalances that make it extraordinarily difficult. One of which is that there are few representatives on the board for Berkeley Heights, number one. I think that imbalance creates very limited opportunity to actually influence the decision-making in Berkeley Heights. The ways I think that the board has communicated, at least in the board meetings I've attended, and certainly common sense would dictate that we would try to increase our leverage in any way that we can. I agree with Ms. Motz that you certainly want a partnership, but there has to be some room for change in the send-receive contract that allows for greater balance. And perhaps instead of direct confrontation negotiation, maybe it's a process where they understand the inherent challenges to the fiscal budget, and specifically that's a 5% increase on a 2% revenue increase per year.
Thank you. Mr. Hyman?
Thanks. So, obvious statement. The current send receive contract relationship is not sustainable. I mean, if you've been to one board meeting or 12, if you've watched anything online or read anything, that's obvious at this point. I met last week. Sort of a quick aside. I met with some seniors in town just to kind of get their perspectives. This was a mix of people who some of them grew up here or have lived here for 30 or 40 years. Some of them have moved back to town to be with grandkids. And there was one interesting comment that I won't name who, but just to paraphrase, and it was sort of like we need to make our money work harder. Was the comment, which was interesting because it sort of sparked a conversation about, we're gonna at some point wrap up the send receive negotiation and Berkeley Heights and it is what it is and hopefully we get a more sustainable deal. But I think regardless of that, there are opportunities for us to, getting back to kind of the words energy and coordination, to tap into what we have here in town to make the resources that we have work harder for us. And I think there's a lot of ready and willing people and organizations from the seniors on down to the town library that are there to help us. And I think that is sustainable. That's part of what I love about Mountainside and what I love about this opportunity.
Thank you. Ms. Parker?
Okay. I think, well, part of it, and I think that Mr. Wolf said this, but the is part of improving the send-receive relationship would be to have them understand our fiscal constraints. But to improve the send-receive relationship as a whole, I think that is something that we have started to do and that I have worked pretty hard, especially over the last couple months. They have their parents and their board have the same concerns that we do. There are falling rankings, again, back to the rankings, achievement and accountability for academic achievement. There are issues in the guidance counseling office, and those kind of things. So those are all part of a send-receive relationship that can be improved regardless, without money, and that will provide a good environment for our kids and for their kids. And they are really committed to, especially, I would say in the last 6 to 8 weeks, have made a great public show of saying, look, these things are issues. We need to fix them. We need accountability. We need to improve our performance, and that can only help us as well. And so we should work with them to do that.
Thank you. Staying on the high school, there seem to be differences in the preparation of kids going to the high school from Columbia and Deersfield. How would you suggest that we ensure that the preparations of our students are better aligned? And we'll go with Mr. Wolf, Mr. Hyman, Ms. Motz, and Ms. Parker.
First, that's a really good question. I think the answer is to work with the superintendent of our school district to determine whether the curriculum on the Berkeley Heights side at the lower grades is matching the curriculum on the Mountainside side, so that as our children go from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade up to the high schools, that they're covering the same material and the same quality. Additionally, I think one of the mistakes I think that we've made as a school district is not measuring the performance of our high school students, the Mountainside high school students in Governor Livingston in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And if we did that, and I understand that we will soon, that would perhaps give us some guidance about areas within the programs at 6th, 7th, and 8th that will help us understand where, from a programmatic side, we can seek improvements to shore up any deficiencies objectively in a way that's measurable. I'm not a big fan of sort of academic or anecdotal evidence. I'm much more a fan of objective data that drives our decision-making process as an education system.
Thank you.
I guess I would sort of extend the question / answer a bit, because I think if we're looking at this in terms of middle school v. middle school, it's probably, to Maura's point, it's probably a little bit limiting in terms of how we would analyze that, the data, et cetera. I see it as, and I think to her credit, Dr. Lubarsky has started to look at it this way too, as a sort of, if our relationship is to continue with Berkeley Heights, it's sort of better mapping K through 8, so that we don't hear, as we have anecdotally, and again, I don't put a lot of stock in it, but we certainly have heard from people who work in both districts that they can tell the difference between a kid coming out of our middle school versus out of theirs. And again, that may be one person's opinion, and that may be bogus, but that's something that's certainly is not worth just dismissing flat outright. And I think it's valuable for us to invest from the beginning, and to look at are we doing the best that we can? Are we offering the best opportunities to kindergartners, 1st, 2nd, all the way up to 8th? Because if we just open up the book on this 6th through 8 or 8th grade only, that's a miss.
Ms. Motz?
We had a similar, I guess I'll call it a project, that Dr. Lubarsky worked on when we were looking at redoing our language arts program. And I really, if it was my decision or I could encourage to follow a simple protocol, that would be my recommendation. And that was to understand what they're doing that we're not doing. When you see other districts, other schools, other communities doing things that you consider better than you, I think it's wise to take a look at what other people are doing and see if there's some things that we can implement. So that'd just be one way to go about it. And I know Dr. Lubarsky and her team are highly effective at this. We've done this before, so that's the way I'd go about it.
Can you read me the question one more time? Is the middle schools?
The children from the middle schools
Right.
Do not seem to be prepared the same.
Okay. So our middle school and Berkeley Heights Middle School use the exact same curriculums. We have the same math curriculum. We have the same LAL curriculum. Historically, in the last couple of years, their kids have outperformed us in language arts because they got the curriculum earlier. So they are a couple of years ahead of us. And what we did, our chief school administrator, Nancy Lebarsky, works very closely and regularly with their team to determine what they're doing right. In terms of math, we have the same math program. We happen to get the math program first. Our kids consistently outperform not only Berkeley Heights, but Summit, Madison, and other districts in math on federal and state testing. And that is a testament to the change in the math program. Now, the Berkeley Heights is a couple of years into it, and their kids are starting to show improvement, and they recognize that. So that they have a ways to go, but they are showing an improvement. So yes, some of our kids will get to Berkeley Heights, and they might be better in math. They'll be in more advanced math classes. Sometimes they're better in languages. And it is our hope by trying to make similar curriculum that they all arrive at the same place equally as well prepared.
1 minute.
Is that it?
A couple of people are concerned about keeping the relationship with Governor Livingston in Berkeley Heights. Do you think that you should continue with that? If so, why? And if not, what would you propose? Mr. Hyman, Mr. Wolf, Ms. Parker, Ms. Motz.
It's another good question, and one that I have certainly heard a lot, and I think is top of mind for a lot of people here. So I'm not necessarily, and this isn't to not answer the question, but I'm not pro a specific school. I don't think we should continue a non-sustainable relationship. I want the best deal for our kids. So whatever that takes, my gut says that it's going to be easiest to find a way to better partner and to develop a sustainable relationship with Berkeley Heights and with GL. I hope that's the case, and I hope we don't. At the same time, I hope we don't settle because they're the only option. I'm glad that we as a district have at least on paper taken a look at what else is out there. Don't know if that will bear any fruit in terms of options or leverage in the ongoing negotiations. But I think it's pretty obvious we can land a better deal, and with whichever district that may be, and so let's go get it. And worth adding too, let's not rush to get it. And if it takes an extra 6 months to get there, so be it. That it's too pivotal a decision to just sort of say, we only have one dance partner, so let's wrap it up.
Thank you. First, I would join Jordan on the question. It's a great question. I think, from my perspective, I'm agnostic on which school it is. I think there's an inherent bias, I think, in the community from the hundreds of folks that I've spoken to who favor GL. But I think, at least in my mind, probably the number one driver is the fiscal relationship and the contract. If the contract itself is one that provides, as many of the board members say all the time, certainty and predictability and accountability, then I think that's the goal at the end of the day. The question also posed, well, if there's a change, why would I be in favor of it? It would be a situation where I think that the GL relationship did not provide the fiscal certainty that would be needed. In another school district that was equal or greater in high school and relatively close, I'm not in favor of going to a school district 10 miles or greater. But if it's a school that's relatively close, where you go from GL is currently ranked 36, but let's say that hypothetically it's a school district that's ranked 5th in the state, and the fiscal certainty is there, I certainly think that's something that we should examine and would have a fiduciary duty to examine closely for the benefit of the children in our community, our kids, and for the future of the school district, because the contract's going to be 5 or 10 years.
My turn?
Your turn.
All right. We all know that I have been fairly outspoken in my criticisms of the issues that I see at GL. However, speaking personally, if we could reach an agreement that did not financially bankrupt this district, I would prefer to stay at Governor Livingston.
I agree with Ms. Parker. If we can come to an agreement and all parties are successful with that agreement, and I think it's wise for us to stay at Berkeley Heights.
Continuing on that line, taxes increased this year due to the referendum and tuition payments to Berkeley Heights. What tax increases do you agree with or oppose? Ms. Motz, Mr. Wolf, Mr. Hyman, and Ms. Parker.
Can you read the question again?
Taxes increased this year due to the referendum and tuition payments to Berkeley Heights.
Okay. Do I agree with them? They want to?
Do you agree or oppose? And please flesh it out.
Well, agree is an interesting way to say it. I mean, I don't think anyone's really happy about tax increases, but I was in favor of the referendum, and we do owe Berkeley Heights. So I am in agreement with paying the additional taxes, I guess. Is that answering the question? I guess I'm a little confused. Yes? Okay. I don't know who, okay.
Do you agree or oppose? Mr. Wolf?
I'd like to say I oppose all taxes in all forms.
I mean,
but having said that, I agree with Ms. Motz. I mean, I think the referendum, while it was a tough bullet to bite, I think we're seeing a lot of benefits. On the referendum, I think one of the things that's important that can't be lost is the notion that Chromebooks, which I just picked up for my daughter in 6th grade, while it's a tool, it's no different than this pen. At the end of the day, what really matters is the quality of teachers. And those tools that we give to them are important. But at the end of the day, and I'll keep saying this, it's the quality of the teachers. The referendum, I think, is important to refurbish a lot of what's going on. It will set the groundwork and set the pavement for other potential opportunities, including revenue opportunities, if we put solar panels on the roofs of the schools, which, as I understand, was not possible before because you would fall through the roof. And in terms of tuition, the inherent nature of the send-receive relationship is designed and structured to create accountability, predictability, and consistency. I don't know, frankly, how that's going to be possible, given the difficulties that I'm hearing from the board and for what I'm seeing in the marketplace. But certainly, that would be the ideal goal to make sure that we can do that going forward.
Mr. Hyman?
I love taxes, obviously. More tax, the better. No, I mean, yeah, look, on the one hand, some of what we're paying for now, unavoidable. It's so, I actually say it would be a good tax. Some of the hits we're now taking, they had to be done. Windows and roofs and HVAC and alarms, et cetera. That's a no-brainer. That said, I mean, I don't know about anyone else. My taxes in town are up. We're here 8 years. We moved here 8 years ago, and my taxes are up, 75-80% in that time. That's a big number. I can tell you that scares the seniors. I can tell you that probably scares a lot of people here. When you look at why people come to the town, there's some basic stuff. Great schools, historically, green space, low taxes, at least historically, great location, et cetera. So if one of those core pillars, taxes, is also a question mark, I go back to perception versus reality. And I think that becomes something that we do need to address and dig further into to determine what can we do? Can we at least stem the bleeding a bit there? And again, can we make what we have work harder?
Ms. Parker?
When we passed the referendum, we all knew that we were going to take a tax hit. So I think that was not unexpected, even though it hurt quite a bit. And as far as the money that we owed to Governor Livingston, or to Berkeley Heights, I'm sorry, we had a couple of options. We could raise the taxes with the reserves that we had budgeted, or we could cut programs, which would result in larger class sizes, teaching cuts. We could have, we looked at different options. Did we cut kindergarten from full day to half day? And really, our only option that we saw that would, without hurting our children and the district and taking things away, was we were in a position where we basically had to take that money that we had budgeted, we had saved in our banked cap and use that. And unfortunately, this year we all took a considerable hit because of that.
What would you do to make our tax money go further and smarter? What specific plans might you have? Ms. Parker, Mr. Hyman, Ms. Motz, and Mr. Wolf.
So I'm assuming they mean the tax money that we get in the 2%. I'm going to address that. We don't have a lot to play with. 2% of what we get is about $80,000, and 85% of our budget goes to teaching and teachers' salaries and benefits. So we have 15% to play with. It's not a lot of money. We have made it go as far as we can, and I think we continue to do so. The one thing we can do to bring more money into the schools and supplement our tax dollars is to look for alternative funding, and we have actively and aggressively pursued that. Ms. Motz formed a committee of citizens who are very active, and we have brought in, I think, between $350,000 and $400,000 in the last couple of years in outside funding to supplement what we don't get in tax dollars.
Mr. Hyman?
So, I think as I look at it, there are, again, that word unsustainable. So we wind up having to sort of each year kind of find a way to make it work with what we've got right now. But it just doesn't feel like something that it sort of, to me, again, as an outsider looking in right now, it feels like we got lucky. We hung on to full day kindergarten. We hung on to not having to change class size and let go of teachers, although that's I think debatable at this point. So I think if you look at back to kind of the word coordination, I'll perhaps steal some thunder, but the town library is a great example where there are people sitting there willing to help us with science fairs and makers fairs, willing to help us do study halls for high school kids, willing to help organize sort of prep for high school type events and programs for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. These don't have to cost anything, frankly, except maybe some sweat equity and volunteer time from people in town. And again, the more we talk to people, the more it's pretty evident that with the people in this room alone, we can definitely raise a lot of money, which is part of it. But I also think we can sort of infuse great ideas and new programs, which is to me just a question of collaboration, energy, and getting people excited about it.
Can I?
Not yet.
Okay.
I agree with both Mr. Hyman and Ms. Parker. Looking for utilizing community resources, that's a great idea. Getting into a better partnership with our library and other community organizations. But as Ms. Parker mentioned, there's not a lot of money to play with. So we have to look at outside revenue sources, and that's a big passion of mine, whether it's through alternative funding committee that we currently have, or looking at other ways to just use our wonderful facilities to generate revenue.
Mr. Wolf?
Again, another really great question. I sat on a board for 6 years in New York for an organization called the Latino Justice. And one of the last things I did, I think the last 8 months when I was on the board, was to work on a capital campaign. and that's raising roughly $6.5 million in 6 months. And part of that process is consistent with what both Ms. Motz and Mr. Hyman and Ms. Parker have talked about, and that's trying to find, in a different context, alternative sources of either gift giving or capital for the effort. Some of the research that I've done before today's meeting was to look at nationally, what are other school districts doing? And you're looking at corporate, public, and private partnerships. You're looking at corporate sponsors, renewable energy. You're looking at advertising revenue. Some schools are advertising, using space in their schools for advertising for product. Another example is we have a new media center. How about naming it the Verizon Media Center or something else, and receiving revenue in that source? So to me, this is a more comprehensive, frankly, a more corporate view of how to use corporate relationships, corporate dollars to try to tap that. And what's really great about this community is we have a lot of folks who commute into New York City who work for private equity funds and hedge funds who have those kind of relationships who could be helpful.
Thank you. I know you're jumping out of your seat to respond.
No, I don't. I have no rebuttal left in me. It's all been said.
I'm sorry.
Don't say that.
No.
Come on.
Well, just, yeah. Right at the moment.
I can't wait. What would you do to improve homeschool collaboration and communication? Ms. Parker?
Homeschool as in homeschooling or home hyphen
No,
school?
home and school collaboration.
Okay.
Ms. Parker, Ms. Motz, Mr. Wolf, and Mr. Hyman.
Okay. I believe that we do have a process in place which can be improved. We now have PowerSchool, and we have e-boards, and we have email, and we have telephones. So I would like to see a more accountability between the schools, the teachers, and the parents as far as communication goes. If a parent emails a teacher, I would think that you should be able to respond within 24 hours. If that doesn't happen, I would expect the parent to say something to the administrator of that school. And I also would like to see better and more consistent use of PowerSchool in terms of updating tests, posting assignments and grades, so that when you get halfway through a year, you've got everything there and there are no surprises, and you can identify issues as they come up and before they become a problem. Now, I'm not saying that this is endemic in our school. I do know that it happens, and I would like to see an improvement in that process.
Thank you. Ms. Motz?
Well, first of all, my personal opinion, and again, I have one child here at Beechwood and two at Deerfield, is the communication's pretty great, in my opinion. So I guess whoever asked this question, I would really want to understand better what their concerns are about their specific situation and what kind of holes they're seeing in the communication between home and school. I'm not sure exactly, what the particular issue is, but I know that the administration's always willing to listen and make improvements. So I would encourage you to communicate to them so that they can make things better, or that we can make things better. My personal opinion is that the communication for me personally with my children and the school is great.
Mr. Wolf?
I think that given the over 200 and some folks that I've spoken to in the community, communication is an issue with a lot of parents. I think that the benefit of going through this process of running as a candidate in this town is that the theory of what we're trying to do is to be as inclusive as possible. And in the inclusion process, you talk to so many different people from so many different grades that you hear of things like this. An example would be TEP, the enhancement program within the school, that it's not communicated to parents who are below third grade, whose kids might be ready in a year or two. They never hear about it, or they don't feel that they hear enough about it. to the parents who have kids who are ready for it but don't know how it works or what it's doing. I think that's an example where I think we could do better in terms of outreach and communication. There are lots of areas I think that we could do better in terms of outreach. I think going out into the community is important, and not relying solely, and I don't think that's the case, but at least in some people's minds in the community, that the only place they can speak is at a board meeting in front of cameras and in front of their peers, and that may not be comfortable for them. I think the opportunity of going out to the community and talking in public settings is a good way to start bridging that gap.
Mr. Hyman?
Thanks. So I guess I'll to a degree piggyback. So I've got I have Julia who's fourth grade. I've got Jackson in first grade, and Justine who's not in the district yet, but thinks she is. And she's the T-shirts and sweatshirts went home today, so they're stealing all that stuff. Anyway, so I think from a personal perspective, having seen just on an individual basis with the kids, the communication with one-on-one with teachers I would say it has improved actually in the last say 2 years. If you have a question, I think you get a response. And they've been, I think, teachers speaking generally here have been patient with me and with us when we ask lots of questions. So I give those teachers a lot of credit. That said, I think taking the word communication and coordination between home and school to the broader level, that's where there is opportunity for improvement. To me, that is everything from getting more people to attend board meetings so that they're in the know, so that they're not surprised, to making people aware of agendas for board meetings earlier, to further publicizing the results of and decisions made at meetings, so that it doesn't feel like it's sort of word of mouth or for those who attended. It gets back to sort of pushing it out so that everyone feels like they were here even if they can't make a meeting, and they get an opportunity to be involved, and they feel like they can ask questions and they feel comfortable being part of the school district.
If the district was awarded a substantial grant, thank you for this, whoever did it, and the board could spend the money on anything in the district, what would you choose to spend that money on? Mr. Hyman, Mr. Wolf, Ms. Parker, Mr. Motz.
Mrs. Motz.
Would Mets season tickets be an inappropriate answer? I'm just looking
For
an
me,
update.
yes.
Yeah. So I think I would look at it in the sense of we are lucky in many ways. We sit in an area of the state, of the country, of the world that our kids have pretty much everything that they want. They don't lack for certainly basics. That said, we have a lot of competition out there, and I think there would be, again, depending on how much money we're talking, there would be an opportunity for certainly increased technology investments, and not just sort of for the sake of investing, but picking the right investments, ones that are applicable to real jobs, to what they're going to study when they get to GL or wherever, and when they get to college. And I think certainly the other level would be, giving them, looking at what else could additional funds help us with on the curriculum side, which would be interesting, I think, to sort of further differentiate us and give our kids exposure to different subjects, more in-depth subjects at an earlier age. I think that would be pretty fascinating to see.
Mr. Wolf?
Again, that would be a fantastic problem to have, I think, to wrestle with. For me, the number one choice would be teachers, paying the teachers more, bringing in the highest quality talent, innovation into the school district, similar to what Mr. Hyman said, and building a bridge between what I would describe as three key constituents in the education model here at Mountainside. There is the school itself, then there is the public library, and then there's the broader ring of community members and building those partnerships. In Pennsylvania, for example, when my wife was a teacher there, she was responsible, the lead teacher for a public-private partnership between one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world and the elementary school, who brought resources in. So what I would do is I would take the existing grant, and then I would build off of that in the areas that I've previously described, which includes essentially taking that, investing in it in the public-private partnerships to build out stronger relationships between the IBMs of the world, the Apples of the world, and our schools.
Thank you. Ms. Parker?
I would first erase the pay-to-play fee for our sports. I would add sports teams that we might want. And since I have a whole bunch of money, I'm going to keep spending because that's about $50. I would increase spending on, and this goes to hiring teachers, on foreign language offerings. I know there's been a big push for Mandarin. There's been a big push for Latin. I would survey and I would add those kind of things. I would also expand our STEM offerings, robotics, and give our kids some kind of a bigger, broader STEM program. And then the other thing that I think would be interesting to have, we have DARE, we have problems that address kind of social issues. We see in middle school, especially when we look at these HIB reports every month, a lot of an increase in anxiety and depression and those kind of things in middle school kids. I would love it if we could have some kind of program, like if it's a peer program, a small group program, a large auditorium program that addresses these kinds of things that these kids see and sometimes don't know what to do with it, and that would kind of help them know that they're not alone. And I think that would be another thing I would like to add, is more special social programs.
Ms. Motz?
Well, my answer's not super exciting, but I would pay off our bills. I don't want to have debt anymore. And if there was still money left over, I would invest it, because I would love for it to last for a really long time. I mean, one thing we've talked about as an alternative funding committee is some kind of an endowment that can continue to pay you forever. So, not as exciting. I'm not going shopping, but I would love to pay off our bills, and I would love to invest it so that it can last for a lot longer.
Can I change my answer to hers? It sounds much smarter than shopping.
No do-overs. Last question is, what do you consider the most important responsibility as a school board member? Ms. Motz, Mr. Wolf, Mr. Hyman, and Ms. Parker.
Oh, boy. I can only pick one thing, huh?
But you have a minute and a half to do it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but you just save money, so maybe they'll give you more.
Right. I mean, I would say to just show up and do your part. I mean, we're all here to work for our community. So, if you've agreed to take on this role, then you show up and you do what we need you to do.
Mr. Wolf?
I agree with Ms. Mott. It's tough to pick one. I would say that probably the most important thing that I'm thinking is I think working hard is presumed. I think the question is, of the other things that are important, I think it's effectively communicating with the community. And part of that is demonstrating leadership about your vision of what education is in this community, so that you have a direction in which we're moving. I think that's critical, and I think that's really important for currently and in the future this community.
So I'll go with the word matchmaking. I think, because I think, and I'll elaborate. I think I mean in that sense that the job, you can't do it all. One person, 7 people up here can't do it all by themselves. And I think there's an opportunity to sort of match great ideas, great skill sets, people who are willing to get involved with the areas of need. And I think, much like I run a team of 7 people at the Wall Street Journal on the ad sales team, and you can't do it yourself, and there's a lot of needs, there's a lot of meetings, there's a lot of big things that have to go out the door. You've got to connect strengths with needs. And I think that is what I'm talking about with making a match and using the role to basically connect opportunities in places where we definitely need help, and I believe that we do, with those who are willing to do it.
Ms. Parker?
Can you repeat the question? Most important.
What is the most important responsibility?
Okay, that's what I thought it was. The most important responsibility of a board member, and often the most difficult one to follow, is to remember that you don't run the school district. Your job is not to run the district or to micromanage. Your job is to hire the chief school administrator to run the district, and you set the policy, and you guide, and you hold the chief school administrator responsible, but you don't run the show. And that's the most important responsibility and the hardest thing to remember most days.
Thank you. It's time for closing.
That's it.
Already?
Yep. Don't forget there's a Mets game. You have 3 minutes for your response, and we will go in opposite of the opening, which is Mr. Hyman, Ms. Motz, Mr. Wolf, and Ms. Parker.
Are there more?
Any more questions?
Yeah, fire away.
Dozen questions that people had sent in.
Yeah.
Some of them I deemed were really targeted and not appropriate to the position.
Not appropriate for what?
School board member. But if you would like to stay after, please feel free to address the candidates with your questions.
Are there any that are worth rephrasing, or you want to just leave them as are? We're good? I don't want to...
I thought I was good.
Oh, no, all good. I mean, look, I'm happy to catch an extra inning of the Mets game if that's what you're offering, but at the same time, I know a lot of people took time out tonight. So, all right, again, let me just start quickly and thank everybody for being here. This is not a... they didn't like my statement. They're leaving already. This is not a... this is not a one-night thing. It's great to see. It's exciting. For me, this has been a running dialogue with people in town over the last 3+ months. It'll continue for me, regardless of certainly what happens November 3rd, because this has been a great learning experience, and I've certainly picked up a lot about how it works and what it takes, and sort of what Mountainside's made of. But I guess I'll sort of leave it as a pretty simple opportunity for us, which is, come November 3rd, we've got 3 weeks to the election. If as you walk out of here and as you talk to your friends in the parking lot, and as you jump back on Mountainside Matters and everything else, and sort of follow what's going on, if you think that what we have right now across the board in terms of education and scores and access to data and analysis of that data, taxes, perception, reality, high school, send and receive. If you're happy and if you're content and you think that this is the best that we can do, then you should not vote for me. If you would like to see additional energy, if you would like to see someone who would be all in for Mountainside, then I would love your support. And again, this is an opportunity for all of us, as I see it. It's not me saying I'm going to get on the board and then go away and come back and let you know how it goes. The way that I've campaigned, the way that we've campaigned, is how I would be a school board member, which is ongoing dialogue. There to talk to you in your living room if you have questions. Happy to do emails at any point in time. Happy to take your suggestions. Happy to play matchmaker. Whatever you would need, whatever you'd want from this role, that's what I'm here to do. And I would be honored to have the opportunity. I really would. I think win or lose, frankly, if we can continue more nights like this where people get involved, people show up, people ask questions, people challenge, where we are and just make sure that we are indeed getting the best out of our board and out of our town, that's a win, certainly. But I'd love to be part of that. I'd love to help us do better. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Moss.
I'd like to thank you for being here, and the PTA for organizing the event, and for all of you, like Mr. Hyman said, it's great to see everybody out here showing your support. The current Board of Education is an incredible team. We all hold a tremendous amount of respect for each other, and we really effectively collaborate. And we are not a complacent board. We are constantly looking to improve. Each person on our board has his or her own strengths and weaknesses and unique experiences. And in the same way, our team also has its own unique identity, and it just really makes us a very highly effective board, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. And while I know that change is often good, change for change's sake only doesn't always result in progress. And Jeannie Parker and I, along with the current Board of Ed, are a diverse, healthy, smart, proactive team, and we constantly develop, adopt, adapt, evolve in our daily service as a group and individually. I think when you think about who you want to vote for on November 3rd, the most important thing to think about is integrity of the people who are serving you and our community. I've fully understood and accepted my responsibilities as a board member. I never run from the difficult decisions, and I willingly contribute my ideas and solutions. And even though I'm not the most talkative person at the board meetings, I always do my part to fully understand the issues and decisions that we need to make, and I thoroughly consider the challenges at hand, and only once I form my opinion do then I share it. And I'm always willing to just tell it like it is when I've formed my opinion. I'm always willing to face the music, and to me, that's what leadership is all about. And that's what I'd like to offer to the community. And I'd like to continue as a board member serving our community. So please vote for me.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. Thank you for your attention this evening, everyone. This election presents a unique opportunity for our community. I think that everyone who's running are good people. That needs to be said. I think the question really for the voters of our community is whether the unique skill sets of the candidates for the challenges presently needed. Unfortunately, the entire board is not running. All right? It's just the people up here that are running. So the choices that you make is whether the unique skill sets of those here fit the challenges before this community. I think that the unique skill sets that I have that is not currently represented on the board or with everyone here fits a certain profile and set of skills that could squarely address a significant number of the challenges presented to the board, whether it's negotiations, whether it's analysis of public policy, regulation, the law, whether it's the use of resources and relationships and connection in government, outside of government, in corporate America. Those are the kinds of things that, at least on the boards that I've been on before, that board members present. It is great that this board all get along and they're very nice to each other. I think that's commendable, and I think that's appropriate. I think that the addition of new members to that board will not change that. I think the skill sets may change, but the camaraderie may not. And ultimately, sometimes in the course of relationships in organizations, there's nothing wrong with a little challenge of the status quo. And I think at the end of the day, the thing that matters is that at least in my instance, that I'm committed to this. The last time I sat on a board, I sat on a board for 6 years. And it's something that I'm committed to doing because I have plenty of other options, including hanging out at home. But I think that serving my community at the end of the day and providing help and support at home to the community instead of on some national board or some other board is what really draws my attention and my interest to this opportunity. And I would relish the opportunity to support this community and give everything that I have and all the relationships and connections that I have to benefit this community as greatly as possible. And I think that if we do this, and if we do this together, not just the 7 people on the board, but as a community, I think we'll see extraordinary benefits in the short term, in the long term, and over the next 10 years and beyond.
Thank you.
you.
Ms. Parker?
Okay. First of all, we didn't say we're all nice to each other. Openness and transparency are the cornerstone of this board. Our district's successes and commitment to addressing tough issues head-on would not be possible without the productive interaction between the board, the administration, and the community. As anyone who has attended or watched our meetings knows, we open the floor for our public meetings for public participation, and we don't close it until we hear all concerns and answer all questions to the best of our ability. There are times when we are constrained by the laws that govern us as elected officials. Even then, we are as forthright as possible without compromising legal boundaries. In recent weeks, the board has been asked to turn off our video cameras during our public meetings so that discussions about the RFP process couldn't be monitored and replayed for the world. There has been a suggestion that the board circumvent its legal constraints by allowing some members of the public to be given access to privileged information so that they can then share it with a broader audience. Kate Motz has been asked by some of her own friends and neighbors to breach her ethical duty and reveal privileged information about the high school RFP process. When she had the integrity to withstand the request and refused, she was verbally threatened. On November 3rd, Mountainside voters have the opportunity to re-elect 2 dedicated board members with a long history of community involvement and a proven commitment to action, accountability, and results. This board actively seeks the talents, input, and involvement of all residents and strives to include, not divide, the community. If re-elected, I will continue to bring honesty, integrity, passion, and energy to the needs and goals of our district with a proactive focus on the best interest and future of our kids and our community. And I would like to thank you all for coming, and particularly thank the PTA and the League of Women Voters for hosting us. Thank you.
Weren't they wonderful? You have a very difficult decision to make on November 3rd. You must choose 2 of the 4 candidates you heard tonight. I wish you luck. Thank you all for attending. Thank you for being so polite. And my special thanks to the Mountainside PTA for organizing this evening. Vote-by-mail applications are due at the county clerk's office by October 27th, in case you need to do or want to do that. And voter applications or changes in information, such as address, are due by tonight at your county clerk's office. Make sure to vote on November 3rd. Polls are open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. For further information on voting, please contact your local League of Women Voters of Berkeley Heights, New Providence Summit, or go to the New Jersey website, njelections.org. And remember the League slogan, take a friend to vote. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you.